In a small town in Ohio, Miller's Grill wasn't just a restaurant. It was a local institution. Richard Miller liked to remind people of that. He had started with a food truck 20 years earlier. Long hours, no investors, no partners, just grit and stubbornness. That story had become part of the brand. The framed photos on the wall showed him flipping burgers in a parking lot, smiling beside the first grand opening banner, shaking hands with local officials. He liked to say he built everything himself. Lately, though, things had been tightening. Food costs were rising. Online reviews were slipping from glowing to still good, but staff turnover was higher than he liked to admit. He felt pressure everywhere, from suppliers, from payroll, from customers expecting perfection. And when pressure builds, it looks for a release. On a busy Friday night, the kitchen was drowning. Orders kept printing. Servers were shouting modifications. A fryer malfunctioned for 10 minutes, setting everything back. Plates stacked up near the dish station faster than they could be cleared. Richard stormed into the kitchen, and there he saw it, a tower of dirty plates near the sink. Marcus stood there, sleeves rolled up, moving fast but methodical. He had worked as the dishwasher for nearly 3 years. Quiet, reliable, never complained, always early. Most of the staff barely noticed him unless something ran out. Richard didn't ask questions. In front of the cooks and servers, he accused Marcus of slowing down service. Said the backlog was costing the restaurant money. Said if someone couldn't handle the simplest job in the building, they didn't belong there. Marcus tried to explain that the sanitizer machine had been acting up again. Richard cut him off. He fired him on the spot. Marcus didn't argue. He didn't defend himself. He removed his apron, folded it carefully, placed it on the counter, and walked out the back door without another word. The kitchen went silent for a moment. Then the chaos resumed. Richard felt a surge of control return to him. Leadership required tough decisions. That's what he believed. About 40 minutes later, a woman in a navy blazer stepped into the front entrance, flashing an official badge. County Health Department. Unannounced inspection. Richard forced a confident smile. Miller's Grill had passed plenty of inspections before. He wasn't worried. At first, everything seemed routine. Then the inspector started asking specific questions. Why was the chicken in one cooler reading 3 degrees above the required temperature? Why were 2 containers in dry storage missing date labels? Why were there gaps in the sanitation log from earlier in the week? The kitchen manager looked confused. The head chef said he assumed the morning shift handled labeling. The morning shift supervisor insisted that sanitation logs were reviewed nightly. But when the inspector asked to see the verification signatures, they weren't there. She checked the chemical sanitizer concentration. Slightly off. She examined the waste disposal area. Improper separation. Each small issue alone might have been manageable. Together, they painted a pattern. The inspector's tone shifted from casual to clinical. By the end of the inspection, she issued a conditional warning. Significant violations. A fine. A mandatory follow-up visit. If corrections weren't made within the week, temporary closure was possible. Guests in the dining room had no idea the kitchen was one inspection away for shutting down. Richard stood in the back hallway after she left, staring at the violation sheet. That was when one of the line cooks quietly said something that changed everything. Marcus usually checks the coolers before service. Another added, he keeps spare labels in the bottom drawer. The manager frowned. He's the one who updates the draft sanitation log before we copy it over. Silence fell again, this time heavier. Over the years, Marcus had quietly taken ownership of things no one formally assigned to him. He arrived 30 minutes early to check refrigerator temperatures. If someone forgot to label food, he did it. If a surface looked greasy, he cleaned it. If sanitizer levels were low, he adjusted them. He never announced it, never demanded recognition. He just did it, not because it was in his job description, because it needed to be done. Richard sat alone in the empty dining room that night. The framed photos on the wall suddenly felt different. The self-made story didn't sit as comfortably. He hadn't built the restaurant alone. He had simply been the loudest voice in it. The next morning, he pulled Marcus's address from the employee file. It was a modest townhouse on the edge of town. When Marcus opened the door, he looked unsurprised. Richard didn't offer speeches about pride. He didn't try to reframe the firing as a misunderstanding. He explained the inspection, the violations, the risk of closure, and then he admitted something he rarely admitted to anyone. He had been wrong. Marcus listened quietly. After a long pause, he explained something Richard had never bothered to ask. Before moving to Ohio, Marcus had worked for a national hotel chain in Chicago. He had completed certified food safety and sanitation training. When the hotel downsized during restructuring, he lost his management track position. For over a year, he couldn't find comparable work. He took the dishwasher job because it was stable. He never considered it beneath him. It was honest work. Richard asked him to come back, but not as a dishwasher. A month later, Miller's Grill introduced a new role: operations and safety coordinator. Marcus implemented structured logs, reorganized storage, standardized procedures, trained staff, quietly rebuilt the invisible systems that kept the restaurant compliant. At the follow-up inspection, the restaurant received one of the highest ratings in the county. Richard stopped telling people he built everything himself. Instead, when asked about the restaurant's turnaround, he said something different. A business doesn't survive because of the person whose name is on the sign. It survives because of the people whose names most customers will never know. And losing one of them almost cost him everything.